My best friend and best man stood at the wedding reception mic, his lips curled into a smile I'd grown to hate. In his hand was the speech I'd watched him practice, the same one filled with lies meant to destroy me. What he didn't know was that when he finished, I'd be the one taking the microphone, and I had receipts. It started 3 months before my wedding day. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years, and I'd never been more certain about anything in my life. We'd set the date for June 15th, a perfect early summer Saturday at her parents' lakeside property. The venue was booked, invitations sent, and my best friend of 15 years, Alex, had eagerly accepted the role of best man. We were sitting at my kitchen table on a Wednesday evening in March, finalizing the guest list over beers. The golden hour sunlight was streaming through the windows, catching the condensation on our bottles. Alex had been acting strange for weeks, checking his phone constantly, canceling plans last minute, asking oddly specific questions about my relationship with Sarah. "So you guys never fight? Ever?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. "We disagree sometimes, like any couple," I said, marking another name on our spreadsheet. "But nothing major." He nodded slowly, then set his phone down with deliberate care. "That's good. That's really good." Something in his tone made me pause. When I looked up, his expression had already reset to neutral. But for a split second, I'd caught something else. Disappointment? "Everything okay with you?" I asked. Yeah, just work stuff." He took a long swig of his beer. "Hey, Sarah texted me about the bachelor party. Wanted to make sure we weren't doing anything too crazy." "That doesn't sound like Sarah." "Well, she did." He shrugged. "Just looking out for you, I guess." That was the first red flag. Sarah and I had already discussed the bachelor party. She'd literally told me, "Have fun, just come back in one piece." She wasn't the type to check up on me through friends. The second flag came a week later. My cousin Jamie called me, voice tight with awkwardness. "Hey, is everything okay with you and Sarah?" My stomach dropped. "Of course. Why?" "It's probably nothing. Just Alex mentioned you guys were having some issues. Said you'd confided in him about some stuff." I gripped my phone tighter. "What stuff exactly?" "He said you caught Sarah texting her ex, and that you were having second thoughts about the wedding." The room seemed to tilt. I'd never said anything remotely like that. Sarah didn't even talk to any of her exes. "Jamie, none of that is true. Not a word." Silence hung between us for a moment. "That's what I thought. Alex has been acting weird lately." After hanging up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. Why would Alex lie about my relationship? We'd been friends since college. He was the first person I called when I decided to propose to Sarah. He'd helped me pick out the ring, a vintage oval diamond that now sat on her finger, catching the light whenever she moved her hand. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Jamie had misunderstood. Maybe it was all a miscommunication. But the flags kept coming, faster now. My sister texted, "Is it true you're only marrying Sarah because you think you can't do better?" Alex seemed really concerned. Sarah's co-worker at a chance meeting. "I heard there might be money problems? Something about gambling debts?" My future mother-in-law, calling with a carefully neutral voice. "Sarah mentioned Alex told her something about your ex-girlfriend reaching out. Is there anything we should discuss?" Each time, the lies grew more elaborate, more targeted. Each time, Alex's name was attached. And each time I confronted him, he had the perfect response ready. "I never said that. Jamie must have misunderstood." "Your sister's twisting my words. I just said you were lucky to have Sarah." I was trying to shut down a rumor someone else started. I was defending you. He always sounded so sincere, so hurt that I would question him. And he always had an explanation that made just enough sense that I couldn't completely dismiss it. We'd been friends for too long. I wanted to believe him, but something had shifted. I started paying closer attention to how Alex acted around Sarah, the way his eyes followed her when she left a room, how he always found reasons to touch her arm or shoulder when talking, how he positioned himself between us in group settings. One night, about 2 months before the wedding, Sarah and I were curled up on the couch watching a movie. She was absent-mindedly twisting her engagement ring, a habit she'd developed since I'd proposed. "Can I ask you something weird?" she said during a quiet scene. "Always. Has Alex ever said anything to you about me? About us?" I paused the movie. What do you mean? She sat up, tucking her legs beneath her. He's been texting me a lot lately. At first it was all wedding stuff, but now... She hesitated. He keeps hinting that you've told him things. Private things about our relationship. Problems we're supposedly having. The room felt suddenly cold. What kind of problems? He said you confided in him that you feel I'm too controlling, that you're having doubts. Her voice wavered slightly. He offered to talk if I ever needed someone. Said he'd always be there for me, even if things between us didn't work out. I felt sick. The pieces were finally clicking into place. Sarah, I never said any of that. Ever. I know. She reached for my hand. That's why it felt so weird. We talk about everything. If you had concerns, you'd tell me directly. Can I see the texts? She handed me her phone. There were dozens of messages from Alex, starting innocently enough with wedding details, gradually shifting to checking in on her emotional state, offering support, suggesting private conversations. The subtext was clear. He was positioning himself as her confidant, her backup option. There's more, she said quietly. He called me last week when you were at that conference. Said he was worried about you, that you seemed stressed about the wedding. Then he asked if I was sure about marrying you. The betrayal burned like acid. My oldest friend was actively trying to sabotage my relationship, my future, my happiness. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, not accusingly, just trying to understand. I didn't want to create drama between you and your best man. I thought maybe he was just being overprotective or misinterpreting things. She squeezed my hand. But it's getting worse, and it's making me uncomfortable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying years of friendship with Alex, wondering if there had always been this darkness beneath the surface. Had he always wanted what I had? Had he always seen me as competition rather than a friend? I decided not to confront him immediately. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. So I started asking around, carefully, friends, family members, co-workers. The pattern was worse than I'd imagined. Alex had been systematically spreading rumors about me for months, not just about my relationship with Sarah, but about my character, my job, my family. To some, he suggested I had a drinking problem. To others, gambling debts. To Sarah's friends, he hinted at infidelity. To my family, he expressed concern about Sarah's supposed controlling nature. He was creating a web of doubt around us, positioning himself as the concerned, supportive friend, the better option. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for a Thursday evening, 2 days before the wedding. As the date approached, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront Alex yet. I'd watch him perform his role as the caring best friend one last time. I'd let him think he was winning. Meanwhile, I saved every text, recorded phone calls, with consent from the other party, collected statements from friends and family about what Alex had told them. Sarah did the same with her communications with him. We built a comprehensive record of his manipulation. The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale restaurant overlooking the lake where we'd be married. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, reflecting in the water below. Everyone important to us was there, both sets of parents, the wedding party, close friends, and family. Alex arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a tailored blue suit, a bottle of expensive champagne in hand. He hugged me with theatrical affection. "The big day's almost here, buddy," he announced loudly, clapping me on the back. His smile was perfect, too perfect, practiced in a way I'd never noticed before. Throughout the dinner, he was the life of the party, charming Sarah's parents, entertaining my nieces and nephews, refilling everyone's glasses. The perfect best man. Several times he caught my eye across the table and raised his glass in a private toast, as if we shared some special bond that no one else could understand. It made my skin crawl. After the main course, he stood and tapped his knife against his glass. The room quieted. "I'd like to practice my toast for the big day, if that's all right with everyone," he said, his voice warm with false sincerity. This wasn't planned. Speeches were for the reception, not the rehearsal dinner. But everyone nodded encouragingly. Alex cleared his throat and pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I've known James for 15 years, he began. "We've been through everything together. College, first jobs, breakups, successes, failures." He spoke for nearly 10 minutes, weaving a narrative that sounded heartfelt but was subtly undermining. He told stories that painted me as immature, impulsive, even selfish, but framed as fond reminiscences. He spoke about Sarah as if she were making a charitable choice in marrying me. He positioned himself as the steadying influence in my life. And so, he concluded, his voice thick with manufactured emotion, while I have my concerns, as any true friend would, I support this union. Sarah, if you ever need anything at all, I'll always be there. For both of you, of course. The room applauded politely, though I noticed several confused expressions. Sarah's hand found mine under the table and squeezed hard. As the evening wound down, Alex pulled me aside, arm around my shoulders, voice lowered conspiratorially. Hey, I've been meaning to ask, are you really sure about all this? Marriage is a big step. I looked into the eyes of the person who had been my best friend for a decade and a half and saw nothing familiar there, just calculation and covetousness. Never been more sure of anything, I said evenly. He nodded slowly. Well, if you change your mind, even last minute, I'm here. No judgment. Thanks, Alex. That means a lot. The day of the wedding arrived, bright and clear. I stood at the altar, watched Sarah walk down the aisle in her white dress, the sun creating a halo around her. We exchanged vows, rings, promises. Alex stood beside me, performing his role perfectly, holding the rings until the moment they were needed, his expression appropriately solemn and supportive. The ceremony transitioned to the reception. Dinner was served, champagne flowed, the first dances were danced. Then came time for the speeches. Alex approached the microphone, champagne flute in hand, that same practiced smile on his face. He unfolded the same paper from his pocket. I've known James for 15 years, he began again. I sat beside Sarah at the head table, watching him perform, knowing that in a few minutes, everything would change. Sarah's hand found mine again, squeezing in silent support. Alex's speech followed the same pattern as the rehearsal, superficially complimentary but subtly undermining, positioning himself as the true friend, the better man, the safety net. And so, while I have my concerns, as any true friend would, I support this union. Sarah, if you ever need anything at all, I'll always be there. Applause followed, slightly more enthusiastic than at the rehearsal dinner, as people had been drinking and were in a celebratory mood. Alex returned to his seat, looking pleased with himself. He caught my eye and raised his glass again in that private toast. I stood up. I'd like to say a few words as well, I announced, approaching the microphone. This wasn't on the program. Alex's smile faltered slightly. First, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate our special day, I began. Sarah and I are overwhelmed by your love and support. I paused, looking around the room at all the faces of people who truly cared about us. It's interesting, actually, how much we've learned about friendship in the months leading up to this wedding. We've discovered who truly supports us and who doesn't. A subtle shift in the room's energy. Alex's posture stiffened. My best man just gave a lovely speech, very similar to the one he gave at the rehearsal dinner. But there's something you should all know about Alex. I pulled out my phone. For the past several months, Alex has been systematically trying to undermine my relationship with Sarah. He's spread rumors about me to many of you in this room. He's told some of you I have a drinking problem. I looked directly at my aunt. He's told others I have gambling debts. My eyes shifted to Sarah's father. He suggested to Sarah's friends that I might be unfaithful. I glanced at her maid of honor. And he's been texting my wife, offering his support if our relationship fails. The room was dead silent now. Alex's face had drained of color. I have the receipts, I said simply. Text messages, recorded conversations, statements from many of you about what he's told you. I tapped my phone screen, and Sarah's phone buzzed. She held it up, showing a series of screenshots I'd just sent her. Sarah, would you mind reading a few of these messages Alex has sent you? She stood, composed and beautiful, in her wedding dress. I don't think James told you everything about his past, she read. There are things you should know before you commit. I've always thought we had a special connection. If things don't work out with James, I'll be here. She stopped, looking up at Alex. There are dozens more like this. Alex stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. They're taking everything out of context. I was just being supportive. Supportive, I echoed. By telling my fiancé's parents I have a secret gambling addiction? By telling my sister I'm only marrying Sarah because I think I can't do better? By systematically trying to poison our relationship from every angle? I never said those things, he protested, looking around the room desperately. But he could see from the expressions that too many people knew the truth. My cousin Jamie is recording this on his phone right now, I said calmly. Would you like to swear under video that you never told him I caught Sarah texting her ex? Jamie held up his phone, clearly recording. Alex's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Or should we ask Sarah's coworker Melissa about the gambling debts you mentioned to her? Or my sister about what you said regarding my motivations for marrying Sarah? Alex's face contorted with anger and embarrassment. You don't understand, he finally managed. I was protecting you. From what? Happiness? She's not right for you, he blurted out, gesturing wildly at Sarah. I know you better than anyone. I've always known what's best for you. The room collectively inhaled. The mask had finally dropped. You're in love with her, I stated. It wasn't a question. Alex's expression crumpled. She deserves better than you, he said, his voice breaking. That's not for you to decide, Sarah said firmly. And for the record, James is exactly who I want, who I choose, who I love. I think it's time for you to leave, I said quietly. Alex looked around the room, searching for allies, finding none. The friends who had arrived with him were staring at their plates. His date, a woman he'd known for only a few weeks, was already gathering her purse. Fine, he spat. Enjoy your perfect little life. But when it falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. He stormed out, the reception hall doors swinging dramatically behind him. A heavy silence hung in the air. I turned back to our guests. I apologize for that unpleasantness, I said sincerely. But Sarah and I believe in honesty, and we couldn't start our marriage with that kind of deception hanging over us. I raised my glass. To truth, to real friendship, and most importantly, to love. The room raised their glasses in return, the tension breaking. The band began playing again. Conversations resumed. Later that night, as Sarah and I swayed on the dance floor for the last song, she rested her head against my chest. Are you okay? She asked softly. He was your oldest friend? I thought about it for a moment, watching the fairy lights twinkle above us, feeling the weight of her ring against my back where her hand rested. I'm sad for what I thought we had, I admitted. But I'm not sad about choosing truth, about choosing us. She lifted her head to look at me. No regrets about making a scene at our wedding? I smiled. It wasn't a scene. It was a reckoning. She laughed, the sound pure and clear. That's one way to start a marriage. With honesty, I said. Always with honesty. The fallout continued long after our honeymoon. Alex lost most of our mutual friends when they realized the extent of his manipulation. His reputation in our social circle was irreparably damaged. Several people who had been on the fence about attending our wedding later told me they were now glad they came. They'd seen his true colors. He tried damage control, claiming I had misrepresented things, that he was the victim of a misunderstanding. But the evidence was too overwhelming. The screenshots, the recorded conversations, the consistent pattern of behavior. Too many people had their own experiences with his lies. 6 months after our wedding, we heard he'd moved to another state. A fresh start, I suppose. Sometimes I wonder if he learned anything from the experience, if he recognized the toxicity of his actions, or if he just considered himself unlucky to have been caught. As for Sarah and me, the experience brought us closer. We learned early in our marriage the importance of communication, of facing problems together, rather than allowing outside influences to create doubts. On our first anniversary, we had a small dinner party. Just the people who had truly supported us through everything. The conversation turned to the wedding, inevitably, and to Alex's dramatic exit. I still can't believe he thought he'd get away with it, my sister said, shaking her head. People believe what they want to believe, I replied. He convinced himself he was the hero of the story. Well, I'm glad you saw through it, Sarah's father said, raising his glass. To seeing clearly. We all raised our glasses. As I took a sip, I caught Sarah twisting her wedding ring, that same unconscious habit from our engagement. But now, it represented something stronger, something tested and proven resilient. I've thought a lot about friendships since then, about how we sometimes accept treatment we shouldn't because of history, because of time invested, about how the people closest to us can cause the most damage if their intentions aren't pure. But I've also thought about the friends who stood by us, the ones who came forward with the truth when asked, the ones who celebrated our happiness instead of trying to undermine it. In the end, Alex did give me a wedding gift, though not one he intended. He showed me who my real friends were. He forced me to stand up for my relationship in a public, unambiguous way. And he taught me that sometimes the hardest truth is better than the most comfortable lie. Sarah and I keep a small box of wedding mementos, cards, vows, dried flowers from her bouquet. Somewhere in that box is the original best man speech that Alex never got to finish. I keep it not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof of what we overcame together, right from the start. That's the foundation of our marriage. Not perfect friendship or absence of conflict, but the willingness to face difficulties together, to choose truth over comfort, to stand firmly in our choice of each other. Every anniversary, as we add another year to our journey, I think about that moment at the microphone, heart pounding, choosing to confront rather than ignore. It wasn't the wedding day I had imagined, but it was honest. It was real. And in the end, that's worth more than any perfectly choreographed ceremony could ever be.